All right, fellow UPSC aspirants, welcome back to the deep dive for part 2 of our March 1st, 2025 deep dive into current affairs.
Sounds good.
You know the drill. We're going to break down complex topics into bite-sized insights to help supercharge your UPSC preparation. Now, some of these topics we might have touched upon in previous deep dives, so consider this a valuable revision session. Okay, let's jump right in. First up, we've got the Revised WAC Amendment Bill 2024. It revolves around this idea of once a WAC, always a whack. Now that sounds pretty straightforward, but trust me, it sparks some serious debate. What exactly does this concept mean, and why is it causing such a stir?
Well, you see, in Islamic law, waqf refers to a property dedicated permanently for religious or charitable purposes. The idea is that once a property is designated as waqf, it remains so forever. It can't be sold, repurposed, or used for anything other than its intended purpose. This principle has its roots in ensuring the continued support of religious institutions and social welfare activities.
Okay, so the intention is noble, but I can see how this could lead to complications, especially in a country as diverse and dynamic as India. And we're not talking about small plots of land here. I mean, think about it. There are a whopping 8.7 lakh WAF properties in India spread across 9.4 lakh acres. That's massive.
Absolutely. That's one of the key issues the bill attempts to address. Managing such vast properties effectively and transparently is a huge challenge. Then there are the disputes that arise from their administration and the lack of a clear legal framework to resolve them.
So it's not just about the principle of WAF itself, but the practical challenges of managing these properties in a modern context. So tell us, what are the key changes proposed in this bill?
Well, the bill aims to modernize WAS management in several key ways. It proposes a more inclusive management structure by involving Muslim women and OBCs in the Central WAF Council and state WAC boards. It emphasizes the use of technology for efficient registration administration and even surveying these vast properties. Plus, it suggests setting up separate WAF boards for specific communities, like the Aga Khani and Bora communities, recognizing their distinct practices.
It sounds like they're trying to strike a balance between preserving the sanctity of WAF while also bringing in much-needed transparency and accountability. But does the bill address those long-standing issues we talked about, like disputes and the lack of judicial oversight?
Yes, it does. The bill introduces a provision for appeals against tribunal decisions to be made to the High Court within 90 days, which is a significant step towards ensuring judicial oversight. It also aims to improve the surveying process using modern technology, which should hopefully reduce disputes and ensure more accurate records.
So it seems like this bill has far-reaching implications, not just for religious governance, but also for property rights, social inclusion, and even technology adoption in India. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves as it goes through the legislative process.
Definitely. It's a testament to how India is grappling with adapting traditional practices to modern-day needs.
Speaking of adaptation, our next topic takes us from the realm of law to the final frontier space. NASA and ISRO are making waves with their lunar water discoveries, and it's not just about quenching the thirst of future astronauts. So imagine this. NASA's Lunar Trailblazer hitching a ride on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, all set to explore the moon. What's the mission all about?
Well, the Lunar Trailblazer is on a very specific quest. It's hunting for one of the moon's most valuable resources, water. And it's not just any ordinary search. This mission is equipped with two cutting-edge instruments: the Lunar Thermal Mapper, LTM, and the High-Resolution Volatiles and Minerals Moon Mapper, HVM3. The LTM is like a high-tech thermometer, mapping the moon's surface temperature, while HVM3 is on the lookout for the fingerprints of water hidden within the lunar landscape.
Okay, but why is lunar water such a big deal? I mean, is it really that different from the water we have here on Earth?
Oh, it's far more than just H2O up there. Think of lunar water as a treasure chest, holding the keys to future lunar settlements and even deeper space exploration. It can be processed into drinking water for astronauts, obviously, but it can also be broken down into its components: hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen for breathing, and hydrogen, well, that's rocket fuel. Imagine a lunar base that can generate its own resources and even fuel rockets for missions further into space.
Oh, that's thinking long term. But this isn't exactly breaking news, is it? We've known about lunar water for a while, haven't we?
You're right. We've been on this lunar water trail for some time now. Think back to 2009 when ISRO's Chandrayaan-1 mission made a groundbreaking discovery. Finding signs of hydrated minerals on the sunlit parts of the moon, that was a game changer. It suggested that water wasn't just lurking in the shadows, but might be more widespread than we initially thought. And that same year, both NASA's Cassini and Deep Impact missions added more weight to this finding.
So the initial hints were there, but it sounds like our understanding has become much more sophisticated over time.
Absolutely. You see, between 2009 and 2018, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO, diligently collected data on lunar water ice, especially in those permanently shadowed regions at the poles, those lunar cold traps where water ice can remain frozen for billions of years. And then in 2018, a reanalysis of that Chandrayaan-1 data gave us even higher resolution maps, confirming the presence of water ice in those very same cold traps.
It's amazing how technology allows us to squeeze more and more information out of data collected years ago. It's like solving a cosmic puzzle, one piece at a time. So what about the latest developments? Has the lunar water hunt yielded any new surprises?
Oh, the discoveries haven't stopped. In 2020, NASA's SOFIA, the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, detected actual water molecules on the sunlit surfaces of the Clavius crater. This was huge because it suggested that water might not be limited to those permanently shadowed regions. And then in 2023, a detailed water map of the lunar South Pole was released based on that SOFIA data, giving us an even more precise picture of water distribution. And of course, last year, ISRO's Chandrayaan-3 made history by successfully landing near the lunar South Pole with a specific mission to study the region's potential water ice deposits.
It's clear that this lunar water isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a strategic resource with the potential to reshape the future of space exploration and maybe even pave the way for human settlements beyond Earth.
It's a fascinating example of how scientific discovery and technological innovation go hand in hand, opening up new frontiers and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, let's dive into a story that highlights the intricate dance between development and conservation right here in India. We're talking about the ambitious initiatives to modernize India's maritime infrastructure. Now, you might be wondering, how does upgrading ports connect to the bigger picture of national development? Well, that's where the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan comes in. Have you heard of it?
Of course, the PM Gati Shakti plan is all about creating a seamless and efficient logistics network across India. Think of it as a grand symphony, orchestrating the movement of goods and people across the country. And guess what? Modernizing our ports is a crucial movement in that symphony.
Okay, so it's not just about bigger and better ports, it's about making the entire system work together seamlessly. So tell us, what are some of the key initiatives under this maritime modernization drive?
Well, there are several notable ones. First, we have the One Nation, One Port process, or ONOP for short. The idea is to standardize operations across all major ports in India, creating a unified and streamlined system. Imagine a scenario where cargo movement is smooth and predictable, regardless of which port it passes through. That's the goal of ONOP.
It sounds like they're trying to eliminate those bureaucratic bottlenecks that can slow down trade. So what else is on the agenda?
Then we have Sagar Ankalan, which is all about boosting efficiency and accountability. It uses something called the Logistics Port Performance Index, or LPTI, to evaluate both major and non-major ports. This index considers factors like cargo handling speed, turnaround time, and berth utilization. Think of it as a report card for ports, encouraging healthy competition and driving continuous improvement.
So it's like a performance-based system, rewarding the best performing ports and motivating others to step up their game. Makes sense. But what about this MAITRI logo I keep hearing about? How does that fit into all of this?
MAITRI. It stands for Master Application for International Trade and Regulatory Interface. It's an innovative platform that aims to simplify and digitalize trade processes. Think of it as a one-stop shop for all trade-related activities, from filing documentation to tracking shipments. The idea is to reduce paperwork, minimize bureaucratic hurdles, and expedite clearances, making it easier for businesses to engage in international trade.
So it's like taking those cumbersome paper trails and transforming them into a sleek digital highway for global trade. Pretty impressive. But how does MAITI connect to the broader picture of India's economic goals and global aspirations?
That's a great question. You see, MATRI is designed to be more than just a domestic tool. It's aligned with initiatives like the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEAS, and is expected to expand to other regions as well. By leveraging technologies like AI and blockchain, MATRI aims to enhance efficiency, security, and transparency, making India a more attractive destination for global trade and investment. It's a key part of India's strategy to position itself as a global logistics hub, a vital node in the intricate web of global commerce.
Now that's a vision with global implications. But let's shift gears from the high seas to the heartland of India, where an intriguing legal case is unfolding. It involves the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, and it invokes a rarely used treaty. The Hague Service Convention. Have you ever heard of this convention?
Of course. The Hague Service Convention is an international treaty designed to streamline a specific but crucial aspect of international legal proceedings: the service of judicial documents across borders. Imagine a scenario where a lawsuit involves parties from different countries. This convention provides a standardized framework to ensure that documents like summons, complaints, or subpoenas are properly delivered and recognized by the courts in those different countries. It's all about facilitating legal cooperation across borders.
So it's like a global courier service for legal documents, ensuring that justice can be served even when cases cross international boundaries. But what makes this particular case involving the US SEC and India so unique?
Well, this case has brought to light a specific nuance in India's participation in the Hague Service Convention. You see, when India joined the convention back in 2006, it included a reservation stating that it wouldn't allow the service of judicial documents through diplomatic channels, except in cases where the recipient is a national of the requesting country. Now, the US SEC is seeking assistance from India under this convention, but the details of the case are still unfolding, and it's unclear how this reservation will be interpreted and applied.
So it's like a legal puzzle, where a seemingly straightforward treaty gets a bit more complex when you factor in national reservations and specific case details. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out and what precedent it might set for future international legal cooperation between India and other countries.
Indeed, this case highlights the intricate interplay between international law, domestic legal frameworks, and the specific circumstances of individual cases. It's a reminder that even in a globalized world, legal systems retain their own unique characteristics and complexities.
Now, speaking of unique characteristics, let's turn our attention to a creature that's both fascinating and critically endangered: the gharial. These long-snouted crocodilians are a symbol of India's rich biodiversity, but their survival is hanging by a thread. But here's a hopeful sign. Madhya Pradesh is leading the charge in gharial conservation, releasing these gentle giants back into the Chambal River. What makes gharials so special, and why are they facing such a dire situation?
Gharials are truly remarkable creatures. They're a type of crocodilian, but their long, slender snouts, called a gara, which resembles an earthen pot, set them apart from their more robust cousins. These snouts are perfectly adapted for catching fish, their primary prey. Unfortunately, these gentle giants are critically endangered, facing a multitude of threats, including habitat loss, pollution, and accidental entanglement in fishing nets.
It's sad to hear that a creature so perfectly adapted to its environment is struggling to survive. But what makes the Chambal River such an ideal location for their reintroduction? And are there other conservation efforts underway to protect these unique reptiles?
The Chambal River is a lifeline for gharials. It flows through a relatively pristine and undisturbed landscape, offering ample habitat and prey for these creatures. And it's not just the Chambal. Several dedicated breeding centers across India, like the Deori Gharial Breeding Center in Madhya Pradesh, are working tirelessly to raise gharials in a safe and controlled environment before releasing them back into the wild. The Gandak River in Bihar has also emerged as a successful breeding site, offering hope for the species' recovery.
It's encouraging to see such dedicated efforts to protect these magnificent creatures. But I remember reading somewhere that rising temperatures could pose a unique challenge for gharials and other reptiles. Is there any truth to that?
You're absolutely right. You're likely referring to something called temperature-dependent sex determination, or TSD. It's a phenomenon observed in many reptiles, including turtles and crocodilians, where the temperature during incubation determines the sex of the offspring. Warmer temperatures tend to produce more females, while cooler temperatures lead to more males.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you're saying that climate change, with its rising temperatures, could actually skew the gender ratio of these species, potentially jeopardizing their long-term survival.
Exactly. It's a complex issue, and one that requires careful monitoring and innovative conservation strategies. We need to protect nesting habitats, but we also need to consider how climate change might be impacting these delicate balances within ecosystems.
It's a stark reminder that conservation in the 21st century needs to be a multifaceted and adaptive approach, one that takes into account the interconnectedness of environmental issues and the far-reaching impacts of climate change.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we need to stay informed and engaged in these issues if we want to ensure a future where these incredible creatures continue to thrive.
It's amazing how interconnected these seemingly disparate events are, isn't it? From the depths of space to the legal intricacies of international treaties and the delicate balance of ecosystems, it's clear that staying informed is crucial for aspiring civil servants like yourselves. Absolutely. Each of these events offers valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities facing India today. Speaking of opportunities, let's talk about the recent launch of the Aadhaar Good Governance portal. Now, we've discussed Aadhaar in previous deep dives, but this portal seems to be taking things to a whole new level. What's so innovative about it?
Well, the Aadhaar Good Governance portal represents a significant shift toward making Aadhaar more user-friendly and efficient, especially for government and non-government entities that need to verify identities. Its primary goal is to streamline the entire process of requesting and granting access for Aadhaar authentication.
So it's about simplifying the bureaucracy and making things more convenient for both citizens and organizations. That sounds promising, but how does it actually work? What are the key changes that make this portal so different?
One of the most notable innovations is the integration of facial recognition technology. This allows for what's being called anytime, anywhere authentication. Imagine you need to access a government service or verify your identity for a financial transaction. Instead of physically visiting an Aadhaar center, you could potentially do it all remotely using your smartphone.
Facial recognition for Aadhaar. That sounds incredibly convenient, but doesn't it raise some concerns about privacy and data security? I mean, facial data is pretty sensitive stuff, isn't it?
You raise a valid point. The use of facial recognition technology does bring up important questions about data protection and potential misuse. It's crucial to remember that this portal's launch comes alongside the Aadhaar Authentication for Good Governance Amendment Rules 2025. These rules have expanded access to Aadhaar authentication for both government and non-government entities, which raises even more questions about how this data will be used and protected.
So it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, we have the potential for greater convenience and efficiency, but on the other hand, there are legitimate concerns about privacy and the potential for misuse. It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is an ongoing debate that every UPSC aspirant should be following closely. It's about understanding the trade-offs between efficiency and individual rights, between technological advancement and ethical considerations. These are the kinds of complex policy dilemmas that you'll likely face as future policymakers and administrators.
Well said. Speaking of complex policy issues, our next topic has certainly generated its fair share of debate.
The three-language policy and Tamil Nadu's continued resistance to its implementation. The goal of promoting multilingualism is certainly commendable, but as we know, language is often intertwined with identity and politics. Can you shed some light on why this policy has faced such strong opposition, especially in Tamil Nadu? The three-language policy, as outlined in the New Education Policy of 2020, encourages students to learn three languages, two of which must be native to India, with the third being a foreign language. While the policy offers some flexibility in choosing these languages, many in Tamil Nadu see it as a potential threat to the status of Tamil and the state's linguistic identity.
Right. Tamil Nadu has a long and proud history of promoting the Tamil language and culture. They've been following a two-language policy, Tamil and English, for decades. So I can see why this shift to a three-language policy would be met with resistance. What are the specific concerns that have fueled this opposition?
One of the main concerns is the perceived imposition of Hindi. Despite the flexibility in language choices, there's a fear that mandating a third language could lead to Hindi becoming the dominant language in education and administration, potentially marginalizing other regional languages like Tamil. This fear is rooted in historical anxieties about linguistic homogenization and the potential erosion of regional identities.
It's a reminder that language isn't just a tool for communication. It's deeply tied to culture, identity, and even political power. This is a debate that goes far beyond the classroom, isn't it? It touches upon fundamental questions about national unity, regional autonomy, and the preservation of cultural diversity.
Exactly. This issue highlights the challenges of crafting policies that balance national goals with regional aspirations and sensitivities. It's a reminder that effective governance requires not only a deep understanding of policy, but also a keen awareness of the historical and cultural context in which those policies are implemented.
Speaking of history and context, let's turn our attention to a discovery that's like a time capsule from Earth's ancient past. The unearthing of a petrified wood fossil in the Rajmahal Hills of Karkand. It's mind-boggling to think about a piece of wood turning into stone over millions of years. What can you tell us about this process?
This process, known as petrification or permineralization, is a truly fascinating example of nature's artistry. Imagine a tree trunk, perhaps carried by a river or toppled by a storm, becoming buried under layers of sediment. Over millions of years, mineral-rich water seeps into the wood's porous structure. As the organic matter slowly decays, those minerals, dissolved in the water, crystallize and fill the spaces within the wood, gradually replacing the organic material.
So it's like a slow and incredibly detailed mineral invasion where the wood's original structure is preserved in stone. It's almost like nature creating a sculpture out of time, isn't it? But what makes this particular discovery in Jharkhand so significant? What can it tell us about India's ancient past?
This petrified wood fossil is like a window into the prehistoric ecosystems of what is now Jharkhand. By studying its features, scientists can identify the type of tree it belonged to, understand the climate and environment of that era, and piece together how life on Earth has evolved over millions of years. It's a valuable piece of the puzzle that helps us reconstruct the history of our planet.
It's incredible how something as seemingly simple as a piece of petrified wood can unlock so much information about Earth's deep history. It reminds us that the past is always present, hidden in the layers of our planet, waiting to be discovered and understood. Speaking of hidden layers, let's dive into a legal case that highlights the complexities of international cooperation. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, seeking assistance from